evening. Good to have you with us in the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Tonight we're going to talk about custodial deaths. And the latest incident that is coming in is from Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh, where an allegation of death in police custody has been made by the family. A 25-year-old suspected of being involved in a theft, and a big theft, a 20 lakh rupee theft, was picked up by the Kanpur police for questioning. He died soon after, allegedly after cops beat him up in the lockup. He complained of stomach pain shortly thereafter. Family members say it's the police who tortured him in lockup, and by the time he got out, it was too late. They are now demanding strict action against the policemen involved and an inquiry into the matter. This is the second such instance that has emerged just in the last few days from Uttar Pradesh. The recent one, another one, was where the family made similar allegations of the man dying in police custody, picked up on suspicion of kidnapping a young girl. It would perhaps have been a case of a relationship to which somebody in the society of the family was perhaps opposed to, but picked up on the suspicion of kidnapping. And then the police turned around and claimed he killed himself in police custody. In police custody, this poor man in a place like Kasganj managed to get access to a rope to hang himself with nobody stopping him. The police stuck on to that argument and said this is what happened. Two instances that have just come in the last week in the limelight. I'm not even talking about several others that we may be missing out. So now let's look at the statistics of custodial deaths and in how many cases do we actually see the culprits being brought to book or any kind of justice being done. Each year, we've been reporting to you instance after instance of brutal assaults leading to deaths in police custody. Often we are told about how cops have been suspended and inquiry ordered, and then nothing happens beyond that. At max, some of the other policemen gets transferred. In the last 20 years, there have been 1,888 custodial deaths recorded in our country as custodial deaths, with no other excuse being given by the police, which often happens as well. Of these, 893 cases were registered against police personnel, but only 358 were ever charge-sheeted. And only 26 policemen have been convicted in this time period. So I'm telling you that over a period of 20 years, over 1,800, almost 1,900 people have died in police custody. And only so far, 26 policemen have been convicted. A dismal record. A dismal record. I have no other way to describe this. In the last 2 years, the cases of custodial deaths have risen many folds, but the convictions remain rare. 1,697 deaths recorded between April 29 and March 2020. 1,584 deaths in judicial custody, 113 deaths in police custody, and nearly 5 deaths per day. That's what the data comes down to if you add the judicial custody part of it as well, not just the police custody. So where are we headed and how do we fix this? Is there no accountability for men in uniform in our country? I say good evening to Rohan Gupta of the Congress Party, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Director for Center for Social Research, V.N. Rai, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, and Desh Ratan Nigam, advocate with the Supreme Court. And let me start off with Mr. Rai. Mr. Rai, often what happens in such cases is the inquiry and probe is also carried out by the same department, which puts a big question mark, unfortunately, on with what intention is it being done. But this data tells us that the intention is never to punish those policemen.
I am very sorry to say you that most of the inquiries are eyewash. because generally it is a magisterial inquiry and magisterial inquiry does not carry any weight. Generally, you will find, I can say, though I don't have data with me, that in 99% cases, the magistrates, they confirm the truthfulness of the police version. So this is all humbug. You have taken a figure of only 20 years. You go back, take figures of more 50 years, 70 years after independence, 75 years after independence. The figure may be much more larger. There are two basic problems. First is the social acceptance of such police brutalities. Our public at large, they expect policemen to behave like this and they condone their deviant behavior. And the second is that after independence, no government was serious to say bring major changes and basic changes in the police behavior. The police which have come into an existence after say 1860 decade laws continues to be same. After independence, there had been no major change. And whenever any government, it is not only this government, previous governments also, whenever they used to talk about police reforms, police modernization, they used to mean only one thing, that police should be given more lethal weapons, police should be provided better communication equipment, police vehicles will match with the vehicles of the criminals. So cosmetic changes were brought. No government was serious about bringing, say, basic and fundamental changes in the police behavior. So I am not surprised. These are only 20 years data. If you go back and bring 70 years data, you will find situation much more worse.
Right.
And unfortunately, no government is serious about it. You see, for last 3-4 years, what is happening in Uttar Pradesh? In Uttar Pradesh, say, you see the newspapers of only 2 years, two days back, you find 4, 5 or 6 persons, I am not exactly, I don't remember the figure, they being shot at the same place. They were shot at their legs by police. And unfortunately, no mainstream media has not taken it up. Nobody has gone to courts. Nobody, no civil society has revolted against it. So it is going on. And those 5-6 people might have been criminals.
Yeah.
But police has no authority. Police has no right to punish them. Police cannot be judge and the executioner both.
Yes.
So somehow this is happening and nobody is bothered about it.
And this is what I want to understand. Mr. Rai, what you're saying, no political will. You know, there was in 2020, a PIL was filed asking for judicial inquiries into custodial deaths to be done mandatorily. It was pointed out when the PIL was filed, and this was reported in the media, that according to a report by the NCRB, that stated between 2005 and 2017, over a period of those 12 years, out of the 827 cases of death or disappearance from police custody, the judicial inquiries were ordered only in 20% of cases. Only in 20%, even an inquiry was ordered, let alone where that inquiry went. So the question that has to be asked, Ranjana Kumari, is why do we lack the political will to fix this part of the system?
I think it's just plain and simple murder by the police. In case of Altaf in UP, we know even just the case that you told in this. I think let's call spade a spade. Let's say this is killing by police in custody. So it is murder and they should be charged with murder. But nobody, no politician, no home minister of no state has the courage to really implement this whole, law in terms of calling them murderer and then framing them under that law. Number one. Number two also is that, these eyewash inquiries have, as Rai Sahab has himself said, that these inquiries are just eyewash and these inquiries do not really establish the truth. Now, the problem lies in the way police does investigation. The moment, you see, the presumption of law is that unless proven guilty, you cannot really consider anybody guilty unless you have done your investigation. So once arrested, police tries to prove itself right. And in doing that, they use all kinds of method. There has been so much, and I think there's a judgment about not using third degree method, but there is not I mean, Vin Raj should talk to us about what these methods are. What all police does to a young boy who's arrested at railway station for stealing somebody's, small amount of money or whatever. I mean, just the kind of treatment these youngsters are given in the police custody, including sexual exploitation. You know, when young boys are arrested, 99% they come out, and there have been researches but NCPCR doesn't want to look into this. They don't want to. So I think there is not only political will, the institutions which are there to protect these kind of people who are under custody are not functional. They're not doing anything about it. Nobody's talking about it. And that is why you can see one after the other, police kills them. Lot of doesn't even get reported. And look at these encounters. Look at the encounter that had happened in that Banjara case, what happened in Hyderabad. I mean, everybody thought this was a solution. 5 boys killed on spot by police, just point blank murder, and people thought this was a solution to the problem of rape. Now look at it. This is what it is at the moment in the country. I hope the government takes this up seriously and not go by all this caste, religion, all the issues that have been played out, but really punish the policemen. Imagine how many people have died in police custody, and look at the number of policemen who have been really punished, suspended,
26
maximum.
Yes, 1888 people died.
Let me just conclude. There is need for serious action. They must be charged with murder, and they must all be punished. If you do it outside, then you are charged with murder. But you do it inside the police station, who's supposed to be protected under law. This is no rule of law. This is no rule of law. This is only, you are given the kind of powers that we have given to the police is what, and the kind of misuse that they are doing.
Yes.
And nobody is willing to recognize that and to say that this is wrong.
And I don't understand why. Even if we say on a larger basis, Rohan Gupta, political parties don't have the will to bring about police reforms because it works for their benefit. The state of police affairs is such that when you need to get your job done, you will pressurize the police department into doing what has to be done by the party in power or the local neta in power, legislator, corporator, parliamentarian, whoever. Beyond that, you don't care. But this is an issue where citizens are being killed. They get so badly beaten up, so badly tortured that there is no way to save them anymore. Why are we not interested in fixing this part?
And I fully agree with you. See, all the systems have lacunas. There is always a scope of improvement. But what we are seeing now, as far as Uttar Pradesh is concerned, is, I think, unbelievable. You are finding that, police says that one person has committed suicide by hanging with the water pipe and all. I think country is not going to accept that. On the other side, you find people like Ashish Mishra, minister's son. He's been summoned by police for 3 times. Police is waiting for them for 2 hours and he doesn't appear. So I think there is something, when you're talking about political will, this is the extreme case scenario. I am not saying that all other parties, there are no issues. But when you see Uttar Pradesh right now, these are like organized killing. You cannot accept this. What's happening? This is really unfortunate. It reduces people's confidence in law and order. How can you have this kind of murders in police custody? There has to be clear-cut political will. And as a political party, I'm very, very clear on that. Nobody should be spared. Any policeman, if he's found involved in this kind of activities, I think this cannot be tolerated at all. And look at what, like one of the panelists recently told, 5 people shoot at the same place. These kind of incidents, how can you accept this in India?
No, sir,
this is not Bermuda Triangle.
I know the recent instances that have happened have come from Uttar Pradesh. I also know that when it comes to dealings of Uttar Pradesh police, there's a big question mark repeatedly on specific instances that happen, irrespective of who is in power, whether it's Yogi Adityanath or if it was Akhilesh before that or even before that. But you will be surprised, Rohan, if I tell you just the data of last year. And this is the official data. Maybe some incidences didn't even get recorded. Custodial death data of 2020 was performing states in terms of higher number of deaths. Uttar Pradesh is not even in the top 5, despite the fact that it's such a huge state and such a popular state. It's Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan and Maharashtra. These are the states. Look at Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat. So I don't want to sit here and make it about one specific government or state or one specific police force. It's across the board. Mr. Deshratan Nigam, is there a way to change this? What can be that process that ensures that a fair investigation is actually done into what went on? And just to take as an example is the recent one where the police said he committed suicide in jail, or this one where he had stomachache, maybe he ate something or died of a heart attack. How do we find the truth and hold people accountable?
Tanvi, you rightly pointed out it is not about particular states or particular political parties. We had a system in 1947 which was predominantly a police state at that point of time because it was ruled by British. They were masters and they were ruling us as masters. Now things have changed. There was a time and occasion at that point of time that serious reforms were required. So we are still having that pre-independence model which is going on. Immense amount of time the political parties had got over the period of time. So instead of resorting to blame game out here and scoring political brownie points, I think one should get above all that. Otherwise, one can talk about Rajasthan, as you rightly said, Maharashtra as well, and many other states. Now, we all recall that 2006, there was Prakash Singh's case in Supreme Court, where they had, issued guidelines, and those guidelines are still pending. Those reforms are necessary. Now, police, about 69% of the cases, of which 40% are said to be because of illness and natural death, and 29% of suicides. This is the NCRB data or the National Human Rights Commission. So the fact remains that have we taken the steps as a nation? No, not yet. Have we separated the police investigation from law and order? Not yet, except probably in Delhi, where we have a police commissioner system, and some places where they implemented the police commissioner system, where police was taken out of the control of the civilian administration and they were given that kind of independence. So first, that independence is to be given to the police at an all India basis. One. Secondly, you have to separate within the police, you have to separate the crime investigation from law and order, so that the one who's responsible for law and order, who arrests in the first place, is not investigating. So his job is finished the moment he, makes an arrest, and it is taken over by the specialized, branch, which has nothing to do with law and order. So that disconnect, that connection, which continues from law and order to investigation, will be disconnected. And believe me, a lot of deaths that occur due to this will be eliminated. Now, specialized boards need to be, set up. And I think some states have set up state security commissions where it is investigation is independent and uninfluenced by the police. Because you cannot be a judge in your own cause. You cannot investigate your own self. So you need an independent mechanism where the judiciary is also involved in that mechanism to impartially investigate such crimes and redressal of such kind of issues or complaints has to be done on a priority basis, so that it acts as a deterrent for future. And punishment system, wherever guilty, a strict punishment system should be there. And the compensation system also, the person whose life has been lost. However, it's a complex issue. We have very stringent laws because it's a requirement of modern day times. We have terrorism, which has come up as a threat. We have various unlawful activities, drug menace that has come. But at the same time, we require check and balances. Those checks and balances are absolutely necessary in a society which is based on rights and duties. And that is where these checks and balances, and in your program, I gave you an example of the French system, where they have equally stringent laws. But in that judicial system, apart from the judge, there is a prosecution judge in between the defense lawyers and the prosecution lawyers, who impartially and in a fair manner applies his mind, whether the issues have to be taken forward or not. Because prosecution seems to be, it's a standard practice world over. And the police atrocities is also a very standard practice, where you have, what was the person's name? in USA,
Yes.
who the policeman sat on a neck
Floyd.
and he died.
Yes,
Floyd,
but
yes.
yes, and
So all those issues are there unless and until we have those kind of reforms and checks and balances and give up that pre-independence model of the police that we are still continuing with. And it is not about Congress or BJP. Please remember that.
yeah,
It's a
okay. No,
system. It's a system.
it is a
that
system.
needs to
I don't think governments that come and go in 5 years can make such a big impact in a system that is already so, deeply rotten from inside. Ranjana Kumari wanted to make a point because you were disagreeing with something that Deshrata Nigam said.
Yes, I think a lot of these suggestions are part of the police reform. If you've
Yeah.
gone through the whole document, you know that all these suggestions are already there. But why I fail to understand this government successive one after the other have not taken up the police reform. What is stopping governments? What is stopping governments from really taking the bull by the horn, saying that, well, police is being empowered to protect citizens, not take the lives of the citizen. Policing has to give a new meaning in this country. And it's been 75 years. We are not talking about something that happened yesterday. If something happened before 47, well, too bad. But now it's been almost going to be almost 3/4 of a century. And also what happened, look, don't give examples of America, because in America, when it happened to Floyd, I think the whole America stood up against that. And whole black rights movement was strengthened by that kind of a thing. And here, nobody is even wanting to talk about it. Not one single politician worth any seriousness in this country is talking about all these deaths that are happening in police custody. Why?
No, and I want to highlight one part. What is most disturbing is...
What is our parliament doing? Is our parliament even mentioning it? Is any politician getting up and saying that, look, these deaths are unacceptable. These are murders by police who's supposed to protect, who's supposed to give law and enforce law and order in the country.
Yeah. Yes. Oh no, you're absolutely right. Now, if there were cases of human rights violations of dangerous criminals, right, Mr. Nigam, I'm just making a point. Do respond to this as you also respond to what Ranjana Kumari is saying. If it was to say terror suspects or people who were involved in a conspiracy to destabilize the government, and there certain instances happen of torture and questions are raised, that's one. But when we start looking at instances of a father and son duo in Thoothkudi who were just simply, trying to earn some living in the middle of a pandemic, got beaten up so badly that they both died in custody. When we see an instance where a person is picked up on suspicion of theft of 20 lakh rupees on a complaint by the neighbor and dies in the custody, then I am extremely concerned about the way the police is unabashedly beating up people.
Tanvi, in
no torture
somebody raised in the panel about society being inert, not responding.
Yeah.
So that is the difference that the society that we have. In US, the society arose. It was not the politicians. Here also, the politicians follow the society. Please remember that. If there is an outcry from the society, every politician will scramble because they are worried about the votes. Because if and that is the way. That is the way society
Fair enough, Mr. Nigam, and I think in the Thoothkudi case, that's what happened. It's the outrage that took place in Tamil Nadu and including also the national mainstream media that led to a fair investigation and some action in that case. But then we are expecting people to start outraging over every incident in our country. 1,888 recorded police custody deaths over 20 years. That's not possible either.
No, I'm raising a larger issue of social awareness.
Correct, yeah.
And secondly, law does not make a distinction between a terrorist suspect, or for common crimes. So human rights and fundamental rights are same for everybody. So you can't keep on, saying that somebody dies, a terrorist suspect dies.
It doesn't. My limited point was on the mindset of the policeman who also sees, somebody suspected of a petty crime as a person who can be beaten up so badly. I was trying to talk about the mindset of the man in the uniform.
Yes,
no torture is acceptable.
Behavioral
changes torture in police custody is acceptable.
Let me finish my point. The behavioral changes is, I think, what everybody is advocating in our police system. Certain reforms, obviously, but mostly behavioral changes. Those behavioral changes have to come out from the colonial mindset that we have, that police has absolute power. No, police
Yeah.
does not have the absolute power. And that realization must go, they have to be very strict, clear, and honest. Nobody is saying that they should not be strict, they should not do their duty with the full force of mandate that they have. But you must not cross that line, Lakshman Rekha, that should not be crossed, because it becomes the judiciary's role to establish somebody's guilt or otherwise.
Yes, and you talk about judiciary's role. I don't know to what extent and how much will the courts of the country also do. The Supreme Court in December 2020, Mr. V.N. Rai, gave an instruction saying that all police stations must have CCTVs there purely for this reason, about knowing of what is going on and the kind of torture that may be going on. 6 months later, a status check was done by media organization, and it was found that nobody really has implemented that. No change on ground has happened after a Supreme Court order. Mr. Rai.
Nothing will happen on the ground unless the society changes, unless the acceptance by the society to this police cruelty is wiped out. Unless society reacts, nothing will happen. I will give only 2 examples. First is the Hyderabad case, which has been discussed here. A lady doctor was brutalized, killed. 4 persons who were responsible, they were arrested within 48 hours, and they were brought from the jail and killed by police in the cold blood. And the people welcomed it. They were, garlanding, distribution of sweets like that. You remember this case of Kanpur? This Dubey, I forget the name of that person. He was taken from Ujjain to Kanpur. Yes. The whole nation knew that he will be killed. And just like Marquez' novella, Chronicle of a Death foretold, except the person who was to be killed, the whole city knew. The whole nation knew. They were waiting helplessly. And they were betting which city he will be killed. When he reached Kanpur, he was killed. And an inquiry headed by an ex-Supreme Court judge. Can you forget this thing? An ex-Supreme Court judge has condoned the action of police. It was the most brutal, most vulgar, most blatant killing by UP police. But nothing happened. So the society, if it is condoning, no political party, one of the speakers has very rightly said that no political party is going to react against it. After all, they have to go to their voters. And if the voters feel that police has every right and police was justified in killing or maiming or beating or brutalizing a person, if society feels, then how you expect political parties to react against it? So first thing is that our society recognizes the brutality of police. They condone the brutality of police. And many of us feel that this is the only way to deal with criminals. Our judicial system, I am very sorry to say, is not capable of punishing criminals. Criminals who are powerful in terms of their caste, in terms of their political, affiliation, in terms of money. Mostly, in most of the cases, you will not find them being punished by the courts. So people think that it is the best thing that police punishes them. And when police punishes them, their brutality is condoned. So we will have to address this system, this situation also, that police brutality could be stopped. Only we demand, as a public, we demand, as a people of this country, we demand that we need a civilized police. This uncivilized police, which was given as an institution by the Britishers, it should have been done away with in 1947.
Right.
But all the rulers who came after 1947, they were not interested in improving or reforming this police. Rather, this police helped them also. This police was the best instrument in the hands of the rulers. So from 1860 to 1947, right, they served the Britishers. After 1947, they are serving the present rulers.
Okay, we come back to the point that Dr. Ranjana was also referring to earlier, and I also raised. And Rohan, I'm taking it back to you because you are the political representative here on this conversation. We have activists, former cop, and a lawyer here on the conversation as well. The commitment of the Parliament. Why is it that no political party deems this important enough to pick up the issue of police reforms in the parliament?
See, I agree with you, Tanvi. I think it is an issue. It is issue of concern now, and all of us, irrespective of whether Congress, BJP, we must take this issue up. And the recent incidents, I think they have become now eye opener as far as the political parties are concerned. So I don't think so. This is a political debate, and there can be any contradiction on this. I am fully on that, and as far as Congress party is concerned, definitely we'll ensure that these issues are taken up. And again, coming back to the points which I think the panel was discussing, it requires a political will at even state level also. Otherwise, if the political will is not there, police in trying to please their akas, they will continue doing these kind of activities and become heroes in minds of people by developing a different kind of perception. So I think we need to delink this with the politics, and then I think this kind of activities can be stopped at state level. But yes, I fully agree with you. As a political party, we must take it up, and as a political party representative, I assure you that we will take it up.
Okay, you are assuring us that you will take it up. It remains to be seen what happens on ground, because I am just, again, referring to the data that we have. Some of the suggestions, Mr. Nigam, as you were talking about in terms of bringing in accountability, exists in these police reforms that are being suggested. Some already exist as rules also. It's the implementation part where we fail, where judicial inquiries are supposed to be ordered and taken through, doesn't happen. Where cases are filed, charge sheets never get filed, and cases get buried somewhere. How do you suggest we fix the judicial aspect of it?
Tanvi, first let me reply to Mr. Rao that about Dubey's killing. It was an impartial inquiry, and to raise fingers that as a commission, established by Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court inquiry, a retired judge of a Supreme Court, coming to a conclusion after taking everything into account, and I would not have that privilege or luxury to comment on that. And secondly, the reforms must begin at the judicial level, at the judiciary level. Then it is going to percolate down. When we talk of CCTV, the recommendation of Supreme Court itself is that there should be a CCTV in the courts. They themselves are not implementing it, and you expect others to do it. Lead by example. Lead by example. When your own committee, the Supreme Committee, says that it should be there, the proceedings have to be recorded, and it should be for public to view. Then many things which are said, which do not become a part of record, are merely said, will not be said in court, and which are lapped up by media. And they are not even reflected in the orders. So all those reforms are absolutely necessary. Implementation has been an issue since a very, very long time, and that needs to be. For that, you need an independent mechanism, as already reflected in Prakash Singh's case in 2006.
Right.
That independent mechanism is absolutely necessary. And separation, let me tell you, as a lawyer, somebody who deals with criminal law, you have to separate investigation from law and order, because that connect that leads to the death, custodial death, is in most of the cases is because the law order mechanism is also investigating it. That disconnect has to be made, and you will find the immense drop in custodial deaths, because investigation would be an independent mechanism, separate from the person who's on the street, the policeman who's on the street, who may have his connections with the local people or the politicians.
Right.
So crime investigation has to be separate from that.
Okay. On that note, we're going to wrap this conversation up. Thank you so much to all of you for joining me. Not a topic that we haven't raised in the past, but the recent examples and the cohesive data that's just emerged from the NCRB helps you put it in perspective as a larger picture. State after state, city after city and towns, we are seeing these instances. Sometimes it's somebody who opened a shop when they shouldn't have during the pandemic, somebody who perhaps was a suspect of a theft or a robbery, somebody who was suspected of kidnapping, somebody who was perhaps in a relationship that the family objected to, someone who was suspected of trying to steal something, didn't even get there. For various reasons, people get picked up and get so badly beaten up then in police custody that they do not manage to survive. I'm not talking about any specific case, but I'm giving you very examples that happen year after year after year in our country. And what is so heartbreaking is that on suspicion of petty crimes, these people get so badly brutalized that they die. It's murder. Custodial deaths are nothing but murder. And in our country, hundreds of those have happened with hardly any accountability. Can we really afford to be that society that believes that the policeman has that kind of unabashed power, that they are above the law themselves? Think about it. Thank you for joining us.